Let the modern room around you grow a little quieter now. Imagine the electric lights fading until only one small flame remains. Beyond the window, there are no headlights, glowing signs, or distant screens. A village settles beneath the darkening sky, following the slow rhythm of sunset. The final work of the day is nearly finished. Tools are carried indoors, animals are checked, and doors are closed against the cooling air. Inside a modest home, a candle trembles beside the wall. Its light reaches only a few steps, leaving the corners soft and indistinct. A small fire still glows in the hearth. It gives warmth, gentle light, and a familiar center to the evening room. There is no need to remember every detail tonight. You may simply walk through this older darkness at an easy pace. Before electric lighting, night was never exactly the same for everyone. Climate, wealth, occupation, season, and local custom shaped each household differently. Yet for many ordinary people, sunset carried greater authority than it does today. The fading light quietly announced that outdoor labor must soon end. Farm work depended especially on usable daylight. Planting, harvesting, repairing fences, and tending animals became harder as the landscape disappeared. As twilight deepened, tasks moved closer to the home. People prepared food, repaired clothing, sharpened tools, or spoke beside the fire. Artificial light existed, but it demanded fuel and attention. A flame was useful, though never as effortless as touching a modern switch. Candles and oil lamps varied by region and household wealth. Each small flame needed care, fuel, and regular attention. It could support sewing, reading, conversation, or prayer within a limited circle. Beyond that circle, the room remained shadowed. Darkness, therefore, reduced many activities. People did not always sleep at sunset, but evenings were often quieter and shorter. Summer daylight could extend work and sociability. Winter darkness arrived earlier, drawing families indoors for many additional hours. Season influenced sleep without controlling it completely. A northern winter created a different night from one near the Mediterranean. The shape of the home mattered as well. A farmhouse, city room, monastery, manor, and inn. Each created its own sleeping world. In many modest dwellings, one room served several purposes. It could be kitchen, workshop, gathering place, dining area, and bedroom. Beds were not always private pieces of furniture. Family members often slept near one another, sharing warmth in limited space. Young children might rest close to parents or siblings. Sleeping arrangements followed household needs more than modern ideas about personal bedrooms. Some people slept on wooden frames. Others used benches, pallets, mats, sacks, or bedding placed upon the floor. A simple mattress might contain straw, chaff, wool, leaves, or other local materials. The filling could be shaken and replaced. Wealthier households could afford feather bedding and bed curtains. Curtains help preserve warmth, privacy, and a quiet sense of enclosure. Before lying down, people completed small evening tasks. The fire was managed, clothing arranged, doors secured, and animals settled. Now imagine the household becoming still. Conversation fades, the candle shortens, and the fire changes from flame to glowing red. Many people probably fell asleep after several hours of darkness, although exact schedules varied. Work, health, age, season, and social life all mattered. Historical writings from parts of pre-industrial Europe often mention a first sleep and a second sleep. These words suggest two periods of rest. This pattern should not be imagined as universal. Not every person, region, class, season, or century followed the same arrangement. Even so, the language reveals a familiar possibility. Someone might sleep for several hours, wake quietly, then sleep again. The waking interval could be brief or continue for an hour or more. It was sometimes called a watch within the night. Modern sleepers may view midnight waking as a problem. In some earlier settings, it could feel ordinary rather than alarming. A person might stir as the fire settled. Another sleeper shifted nearby. A child murmured. Or an animal moved outside. The room was dark, but not entirely silent. Wood tightened in the cold. Wind touched the roof, and livestock breathed nearby. During this interval, some people prayed. Others talked softly, checked the fire, tended children, or completed a small household task. Couples could share private conversation during these hours. Caregivers might comfort an infant, while servants prepared for early duties. Some people remember dreams from their first sleep. Dreams could be understood through religion, medicine, folklore, or personal experience. There was no single historical meaning assigned to dreaming. Different communities understood the sleeping mind in many different ways. The night will continue gently, even if you stop following every word. These old rooms can drift past without being held. After the quiet waking period, tiredness could return naturally. The body cooled, thought slowed, and the second sleep began. This later sleep carried many people toward dawn. Roosters, bells, household movement, or growing light gradually announced morning. People without clocks still had many ways to judge time. They watched candles, stars, moonlight, fires, bells, and darkness. Such estimates were not always precise, nor did they need to be. Daily life often followed shared signals rather than exact minutes. The first pale light returned slowly to shutters and roof lines. Someone rose to revive the fire, fetch water, or prepare food. The sleeping room became a living room once again. Bedding was folded, shaken, covered, or moved aside for the new day. For now, remain beside the fading hearth a little longer. The village is still resting between darkness and dawn. If your eyes feel heavy, you may allow them to close. Nothing in this quiet history requires you to stay awake. Morning will come eventually, but the room may remain dark for several more hours. Around the sleepers, every part of the bed reflects local materials and family circumstances. In a poor rural home, the sleeping place might be simple and practical. A wooden frame, woven ropes, or rough boards could support a filled mattress. Straw was one of the most common fillings in many parts of Europe. It was affordable, replaceable, and available after the harvest. Fresh straw could feel springy and clean at first. Over time, it flattened beneath the weight of repeated nights. Families might open the mattress covering and rearrange the filling. Old straw could be removed and replaced when new material became available. The covering itself was often made from coarse linen, wool, or sturdy cloth. Every layer represented hours of growing, spinning, weaving, and sewing. For many households, bedding was valuable property. Blankets and sheets could appear in wills, marriage agreements, and household inventories. A warm blanket was not merely decoration. In an unheated room, It could make the difference between a comfortable night and a restless one. Wool was especially useful in colder regions. Its fibers trapped air and remained warm even when the night felt damp. Linen sheets were smoother and easier to wash than heavy wool. However, producing fine linen required time, skill, and considerable labor. Wealthier sleepers might rest upon several layers. A firm base could support a softer feather mattress, with sheets and blankets above. Feather beds were prized for their softness and warmth. They required many feathers, careful cleaning, and strong fabric to contain them. Not every feather bed felt equally luxurious. Coarser feathers could create stiffness, while soft down provided lighter insulation. In prosperous homes, beds often became impressive pieces of furniture. Carved wood, embroidered coverings, and tall posts displayed household status. The largest bed might stand in a chamber used for receiving trusted visitors. Privacy did not always mean complete social isolation. A fine bed showed that a household possessed wood, fabric, labor, and space. It could be among the most expensive objects in the home. Bed curtains served several quiet purposes. They held warmth near the sleeper and reduced drafts moving through the chamber. They also offered some privacy in rooms where servants, children, or guests might enter. When closed, the curtains formed a smaller room within the room. The air behind thick curtains could become warm and still. A sleeper might hear the household only as softened movement beyond the fabric. There is no need to picture every bed clearly. Let each one appear briefly, then fade into the gentle darkness. Some beds were built higher above the floor than modern mattresses. Height protected sleepers from cold air and dampness near the ground. A raised bed also avoided dirt, dust, and small disturbances from the floor. Storage could sometimes be placed underneath. Tall bedsteads occasionally required a small stool or step. Climbing into bed became one final movement before rest. The phrase about beds being high to escape rats is often repeated. In reality, warmth, ventilation, status, and construction were also important reasons. Even a raised bed did not guarantee solitude. Sharing a sleeping surface was common in many households. And while traveling, husbands and wives usually shared beds when circumstances allowed. Children might share with siblings, parents, servants, or other relatives. This arrangement conserved space and warmth. It also reflected a world where privacy was understood differently from today. A crowded bed could require familiar habits. Sleepers learned where to place elbows, how to turn carefully, and how to avoid disturbing others. In winter, shared body heat was welcome. Thick walls and fireplaces helped, but many sleeping rooms remained cold after the fire faded. People sometimes warmed beds before entering them. A covered warming pan could carry hot coals beneath the blankets. The pan was moved carefully to heat the sheets without scorching them. In humbler homes, warm stones or wrapped containers might provide similar comfort. Safety depended on attention and experience. Most families treated fire as an ordinary tool that required respect. Sleeping clothes also helped preserve warmth. Many people went to bed wearing garments rather than changing into specialized modern nightwear. A linen shift or a long shirt could serve during the day beneath outer clothing. At night, it became a light sleeping layer. Later centuries saw more dedicated nightshirts and gowns. Their loose shape allowed movement while covering the body in a shared household. Nightcaps protected the head in cold rooms. They were practical garments rather than merely comic objects from old illustrations. A cap could keep hair contained and reduce the chill felt around the ears. It also remained useful when bedding was limited. Clothing customs varied greatly across region and class. Some sleepers removed most garments, while others kept several layers nearby. Outer clothes might be folded beneath the head. A cloak could become an additional blanket during travel or sudden cold. In many homes, the bed was shared not only by family members. Visitors might be offered space beside someone they barely knew. Hospitality sometimes meant giving up part of a bed. A guest could sleep with a host, servant, traveler, or another visitor. The practice was familiar enough to require social rules. Sleepers were expected to behave respectfully within the shared space. At inns, private beds were not always available. A traveler might pay for a place in a bed already occupied by another person. Better inns could provide separate chambers and cleaner linen. Cheaper lodging offered warmth and shelter without much personal space. Travelers sometimes chose their sleeping companions carefully. Clothing, manners, health, and reputation could influence whether a bed was shared. In busy towns, an inn at night was rarely silent. Horses shifted in stables, doors opened, and late arrivals called for assistance. Yet after the final voices faded, the building settled. Travelers rested beneath unfamiliar roofs before continuing at first light. The roads themselves encouraged early sleep. Traveling after darkness could be slow and difficult without reliable lighting. Most journeys followed daylight whenever possible. People stopped before the road disappeared into fields, woods, or uneven ground. A wealthy traveler might carry candles and servants. An ordinary traveler depended more heavily upon moonlight, hospitality, and local knowledge. Moonlit nights could extend movement and work. A bright full moon made paths, courtyards, and fields easier to see. Some communities even planned evening tasks around the moon. Harvesting, visiting, or traveling became more practical beneath its pale light. A moonless night felt different. The landscape narrowed, and familiar objects vanished beyond the reach of a lantern. Lanterns protected flames from wind. Their sides might use horn, glass, paper, thin metal, or carefully constructed openings. Glass was not always cheap or widely available. Thin sheets of animal horn could be treated until enough light passed through. The glow remained modest by modern standards. It illuminated the next few steps rather than the entire road. In the countryside, darkness could feel deep and complete. The nearest light might come from one farmhouse or a distant window. In a town, more flames gathered together. Taverns, workshops, religious buildings, and wealthier homes created scattered islands of light. Even there, streets were often far darker than modern streets. People carried lanterns or followed routes they already knew. Some cities required residents to hang lamps during certain hours. Such rules appeared gradually and were not always enforced consistently. Long before electric street lighting, organized illumination began changing urban evenings. More people could remain outside after sunset. For many centuries, however, night still encouraged retreat. Families closed shutters, guarded the fire, and gathered near familiar voices. Children were prepared for sleep according to household routine. A small child might be wrapped, rocked, sung to, or placed near an adult. Cradles allowed gentle movement while keeping an infant close. Their shape and construction varied across cultures and available materials. Older children often shared beds or sleeping pallets. Separate bedrooms for every child were unusual outside. Very wealthy households. Stories and prayers could mark the end of the day. These moments passed, knowledge, belief, and family memory from one generation to another. A child learned the sounds of night by repetition. The same bell, animal, wind, and footsteps returned evening after evening. Familiar sounds offered orientation when the room was too dark to see. The household could be understood through listening alone. You may listen in the same quiet way now. Let the old floors, blankets, and distant bells soften into one peaceful background. As the fire cools, the sleepers settle deeper into their shared warmth. Curtains hang still, and moonlight rests faintly upon the floor. Nothing more is required from this household tonight. The beds are prepared, the doors are closed, and the long night continues gently. Far beyond this sleeping village, other homes rested beneath different skies. The materials changed, but darkness still shaped the rhythm of ordinary life. In the warmer lands around the Mediterranean, people often adapted sleep to heat. Thick walls and shaded rooms helped preserve cooler air. Ancient Roman houses varied greatly in size and comfort. A wealthy family might have several rooms, while poorer residents crowded into rented buildings. The Roman bedroom was sometimes called a cubiculum. It could be a small chamber containing a raised sleeping platform or simple wooden bed. Roman beds might use wooden frames with woven supports. Mattresses could be filled with wool, reeds, straw, or softer materials. Wealthy sleepers could afford decorated frames and finer coverings. Ordinary people relied upon practical bedding suited to their income. Roman daily schedules often began early. Morning business, household duties, market activity, and physical labor followed the arrival of daylight. After sunset, lamps extended the evening, though their light remained limited. Small clay lamps burned olive oil through a simple wick. Their glow was warm and local. Several lamps were needed to brighten a large room, and oil always carried a cost. A lamp might remain beside a bed for a short time. Its flame allowed quiet conversation, prayer, reading, or final household work. Then the wick was extinguished. The room returned to darkness, and the sounds of the street became more noticeable. Ancient Rome was not silent at night. Carts sometimes moved after dark, when crowded streets were easier to cross. The rumble of wheels could pass beneath upper windows. Voices, animals, and distant activity continued through parts of the night. Country villas and farms offered a different soundscape. There, sleepers heard insects, wind, livestock, and workers beginning before dawn. Roman writers occasionally complained about disturbed sleep. Such complaints remind us that restless nights are not uniquely modern. Yet many people also accepted irregular sleep as part of ordinary life. Noise, temperature, illness, children, and work shaped every household. You do not need to hold these distant rooms in your memory. Let each lamp appear briefly, then disappear into the dark. Along the Nile, ancient Egyptian sleepers faced long periods of heat. Homes were designed with ventilation, shaded courtyards, and flat roofs. Some people may have rested on rooftops during hot weather. Higher open spaces could receive cooler night air. Beds in ancient Egypt were often raised from the ground. Wooden frames supported woven surfaces made from plant fibers or cord. The frame sometimes sloped slightly toward the foot. Wealthy examples were carefully carved, while simpler beds remained plain and useful. Instead of soft pillows, many Egyptians used headrests. These supported the neck and lifted the head above the sleeping surface. A headrest might be made from wood, stone, pottery, or other materials. Its curved upper section held the head in place. To modern eyes, it may appear uncomfortable. Yet comfort is partly learned through habit, posture, climate, and familiar custom. The raised head allowed air to move around the sleeper. It also protected elaborate hairstyles and kept the face away from insects. Some headrests carry protective images or inscriptions. Sleep could be viewed as a vulnerable passage requiring spiritual care. Dreams held importance in Egyptian culture. Certain dreams were interpreted as messages, warnings, or signs of future events. Not every dream received great attention. Many must have faded after waking. Much as dreams quietly vanish today, ordinary families slept with fewer luxuries than royal households. Mats woven from reeds could provide a practical place to rest. In a warm climate, heavy bedding was less necessary. Light linen coverings and moving air brought more comfort than thick blankets. The night beside the Nile carried its own familiar sounds. Water, insects, animals, and distant human activity softened the darkness. Far to the north, winter created an entirely different sleeping world. In a Viking Age longhouse, warmth was carefully preserved. A longhouse usually contained a central living space shared by the household. Cooking, work, conversation, and rest occurred beneath one roof. The fire formed the heart of the building. Smoke escaped through openings above, while warmth spread slowly along the room. Raised platforms or benches often lined the walls. During the day, people sat and worked there. At night, these same surfaces became sleeping places. Blankets, furs, cloaks, and simple bedding were arranged over the benches. There was little separation between sleeping and waking space. The household remained together, surrounded by tools, supplies, and daily possessions. Servants, relatives, workers, and guests could all rest within the same structure. Status influenced location, bedding quality, and available space. The most sheltered places near warmth were desirable. However, sleeping too close to the fire could become uncomfortable. Wool clothing was valuable in the northern climate. A cloak used outdoors might serve as an additional covering during sleep. Animal skins also provided insulation. They were useful beneath the body, above the sleeper, or across cold wooden surfaces. The longhouse night was rarely perfectly still. The fire cracked, wind pressed against the walls, and sleepers shifted upon the benches. In some households, animals stayed close to the human living area. Their warmth, smell, and movement became part of the winter night. Darkness lasted many hours in northern winters. The household could not simply remain inactive from sunset until sunrise. Indoor work continued by firelight. People repaired equipment, spun fibers, carved wood, told stories, and prepared for future tasks. Stories helped fill long evenings. They carried family histories, local knowledge, humor, beliefs, and memories of distant journeys. The spoken voice required no expensive fuel beyond the existing fire. It made darkness social rather than empty. When tiredness arrived, conversation gradually shortened. One person lay down, then another, until only the fire remained active. If your thoughts are becoming softer now, you may let them wander. the longhouse will remain warm without your attention. Elsewhere, monastery nights followed a more structured rhythm. Religious communities divided darkness according to prayer and work. Monks and nuns did not always sleep continuously until morning. Night offices could require waking at appointed hours. A bell might call the community from its beds. Sleepers rose, dressed, and moved quietly through cold passages toward worship. Schedules changed across regions, religious orders, and historical periods. Some communities demanded stricter night waking than others. Sleeping quarters could be shared dormitories. Rows of simple beds placed each person within sight and hearing of the community. Privacy was limited, reflecting ideals of discipline and common life. Personal possessions were often kept modest. The beds themselves might contain straw mattresses, woolen coverings, and simple wooden frames. Luxury was generally discouraged. In winter, leaving a warm bed for prayer required effort. Cloaks and heavy garments protected the body from the cold. The church or chapel was lit by candles and lamps. Their glow touched stone walls, wooden stalls, and slowly turning pages. After prayer, the community returned to rest. The night therefore unfolded in sections of sleeping and waking. This pattern differed from household first and second sleep. It was organized by religious duty rather than only natural awakening. Still, both remind us that uninterrupted sleep was not always expected. A night could contain several distinct chapters. In towns, church bells also helped ordinary people judge the passing hours. The sound traveled farther than a small household clock. Most people did not own accurate mechanical clocks. Bells created a shared sense of time across the surrounding streets. A bell could announce prayer, curfew, danger, work, or the opening of gates. Its meaning depended upon place and custom. At night, the familiar sequence offered reassurance. Even unseen, the town continued to keep its rhythm. Country dwellers used other signals. They observed stars, the position of the moon, the fading fire, and the behavior of animals. A person accustomed to the night sky could estimate time surprisingly well. The stars moved in patterns known through long experience. Cloudy weather made such judgment harder. Then people relied upon habit, tiredness, household movement, and remembered routines. Exact minutes rarely mattered during sleep. Morning began when enough light returned for the next necessary task. Across these distant societies, beds differed in shape and softness. Yet nearly everyone sought warmth, safety, rest, and familiar company. The human body still cooled during sleep. Breathing slowed, muscles relaxed, and awareness turned away from the surrounding room. These basic rhythms connected the Roman apartment, Egyptian rooftop, northern longhouse, and monastery dormitory. For now, all four places can fade together. Oil lamps darken, fires settle, and the final bell disappears into the night. You may rest without deciding which room you prefer. Let them all drift quietly beyond the edge of thought. Across Asia, sleep developed around different climates, building styles, and ideas of comfort. Floors, mats, wooden platforms, and heated surfaces shaped many ordinary nights. In parts of China, sleeping furniture often reflected both region and household wealth. Raised wooden beds were common in many settled communities. Some beds included curtains, carved frames, or enclosed wooden sides. These features offered privacy, warmth, and protection from drafts. In prosperous homes, a bed could become a carefully decorated household object. In poorer homes, the structure remained simpler and more practical. Bedding might include woven mats, cotton-filled quilts, or padded covers. Materials changed with climate, trade, and local farming. Cotton became increasingly important in many regions over time. It offered a softer and more washable alternative to some earlier fillings. In northern China, winter nights could be severe. Families developed ways to warm both rooms and sleeping surfaces. One well-known example was the kang, a raised masonry platform heated from below. Warm air from a stove traveled through channels beneath it. During the day, people might sit, eat, sew, or work upon the platform. At night, bedding was arranged across its warm surface. The kang was more than a bed. It became a central place for family life during cold weather. Heat gathered slowly within the masonry and remained after the fire weakened. This made long winter nights more comfortable. Several family members might share the platform. Their sleeping positions reflected age, status, and household relationships. The warmest place was not always given randomly. Elders or honored guests could receive the most comfortable position. Before sleep, quilts were unfolded and arranged. Clothing might be placed nearby for the cold awakening before sunrise. Outside, wind moved across roofs and courtyards. Inside, the heated platform held the memory of the evening fire. In warmer southern regions, heavy heated beds were less useful. Ventilation, lighter bedding, and raised furniture offered greater comfort. Bamboo mats could feel cool against the skin. Their smooth surfaces helped sleepers endure humid summer nights. Doors and windows might remain partly open when conditions allowed. Screens, curtains, and nets reduced insects while preserving airflow. Night air entered through courtyards and shaded passages. Water features and gardens could cool wealthier homes further. There is no need to compare every sleeping custom. Each room may simply pass like a quiet scene beneath moonlight. In Japan, traditional sleeping arrangements often used floor mats and portable bedding. This allowed rooms to serve several purposes. Tatami mats provided a firm, slightly yielding surface. Their woven rush covering carried a mild, natural scent. Futon bedding could be spread across the floor at night. In the morning, it was folded and stored away. The same room could then become a place for eating, working, receiving guests, or drinking tea. This flexibility was especially useful where indoor space was limited. A permanent bed did not occupy the room throughout the day. Historical sleeping arrangements varied by period and social class. Wealthy residences and modest town homes did not look alike. Some people slept upon padded quilts laid over tatami. Others used simpler mats, blankets, or clothing as support. Wooden headrests were sometimes used, especially when preserving elaborate hairstyles. They supported the neck while keeping the hair untouched. Such headrests demanded a familiar sleeping posture. What seems unusual now could become comfortable through long habit. During winter, homes could be difficult to heat completely. People warmed themselves locally rather than heating every room. A brazier supplied limited warmth for hands and feet. Thick robes, layered quilts, and close sleeping arrangements helped through the night. Charcoal required careful ventilation. Households understood that useful heat also demanded attention and experience. Hot water containers sometimes warmed bedding. A small source of heat beneath the covers could make a cold floor more welcoming. During summer, rooms were open to moving air. Light screens offered separation without blocking every breeze. The sounds of rain, insects, and garden water entered the sleeping space. Seasonal sounds became part of the familiar night. In many Japanese communities, temple bells marked time. Their distant tones crossed roofs, gardens, and darkened streets. A bell did not provide exact personal timekeeping. It offered a shared rhythm heard by many people at once. Night watchmen also moved through some towns. Their calls and wooden clappers announced that someone remained awake. The sound could remind residents to guard against fire. Wooden buildings, lamps, and open flames required constant caution. After the call faded, the street became quiet again. Sleepers knew the watchman would eventually pass another time. Across the Islamic world, climate strongly influenced nighttime life. Hot days often encouraged activity during cooler evening hours. Cities could remain social after sunset. Markets, courtyards, fountains, and family gatherings became more comfortable as temperatures fell. Oil lamps lit homes, workshops, religious spaces, and streets. Their brightness remained gentle compared with modern electric light. In wealthy houses, inner courtyards offered privacy and cooler air. Families gathered there before retiring to separate rooms or sleeping areas. Flat rooftops sometimes became sleeping places during hot seasons. Open sky and moving air provided relief from indoor heat. A household might carry mats, cushions, and light coverings upward. The roof became a temporary bedroom beneath the stars. Night sounds rose from neighboring roofs and courtyards. Voices, footsteps, animals, and distant prayer blended softly across the city. Privacy still mattered, especially within family life. Screens, walls, curtains, and household divisions shaped where people rested. In modest homes, several people often shared a room. Bedding could be rolled, stacked, or moved during the day. Carpets and woven mats softened hard floors. Cushions supported sitting before becoming part of the sleeping arrangement. Textiles were especially important household possessions. Blankets, rugs, and cushions carried practical value as well as beauty. In colder highland or desert regions, nights could become surprisingly cold. Thick wool coverings protected sleepers after daytime heat disappeared. Travelers crossing these landscapes learned to sleep with little furniture. A cloak, saddle blanket, rug, or folded garment might become a bed. Caravan travelers rested in inns, courtyards, tents, or sheltered ground. Animals remained nearby, creating steady sounds through the darkness. Camels shifted, ropes tightened, and small fires burned low. Someone often remained alert while others slept. Sleep during travel rarely followed one perfect pattern. Weather, safety, distance, and responsibility interrupted the night. A merchant might wait before dawn to prepare the next stage. Goods had to be checked before the road grew busy. Pilgrims also slept in changing surroundings. Religious journeys brought people into shared rooms, courtyards, and temporary camps. These nights could be crowded but companionable. Strangers shared food, stories, and practical knowledge before resting. Farther west and south, people in tropical regions developed other sleeping solutions. Warmth was usually less important than airflow. Hammocks became especially useful in parts of the Americas. Suspended above the ground, they allowed air to move beneath the sleeper. Their woven structure adapted to the body without requiring a heavy mattress. They could also be lifted away during the day. A hammock kept sleepers above damp soil and many crawling insects. It was portable, practical, and suited to warm climates. European visitors sometimes found hammocks sleeping unfamiliar. Sailors soon recognized its usefulness aboard moving ships. At sea, a fixed bed could throw a sleeper from side to side. A hanging hammock moved more gently with the vessel. Sailors slept in cramped spaces below deck. Hammocks were hung close together and removed when not in use. The air could be humid, salty, and crowded. Wood creaked constantly as the ship moved through waves. Watches divided the crew's sleep. Some sailors rested while others worked on deck. A bell marked the passage of each watch. Its repeated pattern organized labor throughout day and night. No sailor expected everyone to sleep together until morning. The ship required attention every hour. Winds changed, sails needed adjustment, and weather had to be observed. Rest came in sections between periods of duty. A hammock could still provide comfort within this restless routine. Its gentle motion followed the rhythm of the sea. Travelers on land also slept in fragments. Coach passengers, messengers, shepherds, and traders rested whenever conditions allowed. A shepherd might sleep lightly near the flock. Familiar animal sounds helped reveal when something had changed. Seasonal work could shorten sleep temporarily. Harvests, lambing, fishing, and long journeys often demanded unusual hours. Ordinary people adjusted as necessary, then rested more when work permitted. Sleep was flexible because life was flexible. Modern schedules often seek consistency. Earlier schedules were frequently shaped by sunlight, weather, animals, and immediate tasks. This did not mean everyone slept peacefully. People experienced worry, pain, noise, heat, cold, and wakefulness in every era. Yet they also developed familiar ways to settle again. They adjusted blankets, listened to known sounds, or waited quietly for tiredness. You may do the same without effort tonight. There is no need to force sleep or measure its arrival. Let the watchman continue down the street. Let the sailor's bell sound somewhere far beyond the room. A warm platform, a folded futon, a rooftop mat, and a hammock now drift together. Each carries a sleeper gently through another part of the night. The darkness remains calm around them. Their breathing slows, their thoughts loosen, and the old world rests once more. As the night moves onward, the weather begins to shape every sleeping place. Cold, heat, rain, and wind quietly decide what comfort means. In winter, many European homes were difficult to warm completely. A fireplace heated one area well, while distant corners remained cold. Families gathered near the hearth during the evening. When bedtime came, much of that warmth stayed behind in the main room. Sleeping chambers might contain no separate fire. Thick walls slowed the cold, but they could not remove it entirely. People relied on layers instead. Wool blankets, feather beds, curtains, caps, and shared warmth formed a small shelter around the body. Heavy bed curtains reduced moving air. Once closed, They created a warmer pocket that held the sleeper's breath and body heat. Some households placed rugs or woven hangings along cold walls. These softened drafts and made stone rooms feel less severe. Tapestries in wealthy homes were beautiful, but they also served practical purposes. Fabric reduced the chill of bare masonry. A sleeper might place clothing across the bed for extra warmth. Cloaks, coats, and skirts became additional layers during bitter nights. Feet were especially difficult to keep warm. Wrapped stones, heated bricks, or warm bottles could be tucked beneath the covers. These simple objects released heat slowly. By morning, they had cooled, but the coldest hours had already passed. In poorer homes, everyone might sleep within the warmest available room. Privacy became less important than conserving heat. Children rested near adults, and servants might sleep close to the kitchen. A fading cooking fire still offered more warmth than an empty chamber. Some families allowed small animals indoors during extreme weather. Their presence added movement, sound, smell, and a little heat. The winter room was not perfectly comfortable, yet familiarity helped people settle within conditions they had known since childhood. There is no need to imagine the cold too clearly. Let the blankets remain thick and let the fire continue glowing nearby. Summer brought the opposite challenge. A heavy enclosed bed could become warm, airless, and difficult to tolerate. Bed curtains were tied back when privacy allowed. Windows, shutters, and doors were opened to encourage moving air. Insects entered more easily through open spaces. Nets, light curtains, smoke, and scented plants offered varying degrees of protection. Some households burned herbs or other materials to discourage insects. The effect was imperfect, but even modest relief was welcome. People sometimes moved their sleeping places with the seasons. A room comfortable in winter might be avoided during summer. Upper floors could trap heat beneath a roof. Lower rooms, courtyards, balconies, and outdoor spaces might feel cooler after sunset. In hot regions, people waited until late evening before settling. The day's stored heat needed time to escape from walls and streets. Night air often arrived gradually. As surfaces cooled, conversation slowed, bedding was spread, and the household prepared to rest. Light coverings replaced heavy blankets. A woven mat or thin sheet could be enough beneath the warm sky. Some sleepers used hand fans before falling asleep. Others depended upon open windows and the chance arrival of a breeze. Water could cool the surroundings as well. Damp cloths, fountains, washed floors, and shaded courtyards slightly lowered the temperature. Sleep remained connected to architecture. High ceilings, inner courtyards, shutters, and thick walls shaped the movement of heat. Builders learned these lessons across generations. A house reflected accumulated experience with local seasons. Rain created another kind of night. On a sound roof, it formed a steady pattern that could encourage sleep. On a damaged roof, it required bowls, cloths, repairs, and patience. Families knew which corners remained dry during storms. Thatched roofs could keep out rain surprisingly well when properly maintained. Their thick layers also provided useful insulation. Tiles, wooden shingles, reeds, and packed earth served in other places. Every material produced its own nighttime sound. A storm could be heard long before it arrived. Wind moved through trees, shutters shifted, and animals became unsettled. Households checked doors and covered fires. Loose objects were brought inside before everyone returned to bed. Thunder was understood through many traditions. Some heard natural weather, while others connected storms with divine or spiritual forces. Even when explanations differed, the practical response was similar. People protected roofs, livestock, tools, food, and sleeping children. After the storm passed, water continued dripping from eaves. The softer rhythm often remained until morning. In towns, night sounds followed human routines. Taverns closed, gates were secured, and late workers finished their duties. Some cities imposed curfews. A bell could announce when residents should leave the streets or extinguish unnecessary fires. The word curfew developed from customs connected with covering fires. Open flames were a serious concern in crowded settlements. Wooden houses stood close together in many towns. One neglected candle or hearth could threaten an entire neighborhood. Residents, therefore, banked fires before sleep. Ash was drawn over the embers, preserving heat while reducing exposed flame. The fire was not always allowed to die completely. Remaining embers made it easier to begin the next morning. A household without live coals might borrow fire from a neighbor. Before easy matches, creating flame demanded preparation. Flint and steel could produce sparks, but patience was required. Dry tinder had to catch before larger fuel was added. Protecting the evening fire saved labor. It linked one day's warmth to the beginning of the next. Night watchmen helped guard towns against fire and disorder. They walked familiar routes while most residents slept. Their calls sometimes announced the hour and weather. A voice in the darkness might report that all remained well. For sleepers, the sound could be reassuring. Someone was awake, watching streets that had disappeared beyond closed shutters. The watchman carried a lantern, staff, bell, horn, or wooden rattle. Equipment varied with place and period. He listened for unusual movement and looked for dangerous flames. Much of the work consisted of patient repetition. The streets between his visits became quiet again. His footsteps faded over stone, earth, or wooden bridges. In villages, there might be no formal watchman. Dogs, neighbors, and household members provided a looser form of nighttime awareness. Dogs heard movement before humans did. Their barking could spread from one farm to another across the darkness. Not every bark signaled danger. Familiar animals reacted to travelers, wildlife, livestock, and sounds now forgotten. Roosters were also part of the night, not only the morning. They sometimes called long before sunrise. Their early cries did not always mean dawn had arrived. Sleepers learned to distinguish the first uncertain calls from true warning. Cattle shifted in stalls, horses stamped, and sheep moved together. Rural darkness was filled with quiet animal life. Owls, insects, frogs, and wind created seasonal soundscapes. People recognized which sounds belonged to each time of year. In coastal settlements, waves and rigging continued through the night. Fishing families listened for changes in wind and water. A boat might leave before sunrise to meet tides or favorable conditions. Sleep was arranged around the sea rather than the clock. Fishing crews sometimes rested during daylight after working through darkness. Their schedule reversed the pattern of nearby farmers. Bakers also worked while towns slept. Dough needed time, and bread had to be ready when morning customers arrived. A baker might rise near midnight or in the earliest hours. The oven slowly warmed while other households remained dark. Servants, stable workers, midwives, and guards also kept unusual hours. The sleeping city always contained a few waking people. Their movement was usually quiet and purposeful. They prepared the world that others would enter after dawn. Some workers slept in short periods whenever duties allowed. Continuous nighttime rest was a privilege their occupations could interrupt. Shepherds faced similar demands during lambing seasons. A weak animal or difficult birth could require attention through several nights. Parents of infants also understood broken sleep, feeding, illness, discomfort, and crying divided the night into smaller pieces. Cradles could be placed beside the adult bed. A parent could respond without crossing a dark room. In some homes, a cradle hung from ropes or rested on curved supports. Gentle motion soothed the child toward sleep. Lullabies carried simple melodies through dim rooms. Their words might contain family stories, hopes, warnings, or ordinary affection. The melody mattered as much as the language. Repetition slowed both the singer and the child. Older children often learned to fall asleep amid adult conversation. The household did not always become silent for their bedtime. They rested on benches, pallets, or shared beds while work continued nearby. Familiar voices became part of the sleeping environment. Stories helped children understand darkness. Tales explained stars, animals, dreams, weather, and the strange sounds beyond the door. Some stories were comforting, while others taught caution. Tonight, only the gentler ones need remain. Imagine a quiet tale spoken beside the hearth. No one needs to follow every event, because the ending is already safe. If your eyes are closed now, you may let the words become only sound. The old village will continue without your attention. Beyond one wall, a watchman makes another slow round. Beyond another, a baker tends the first warm oven. A mother rocks a cradle, and a sailor takes the next watch. Across the countryside, animals settle beneath dark roofs. No single sleeping pattern belongs to everyone. The night adjusts itself around work, weather, age, family, and place. For most people, rest was not perfectly silent or uninterrupted. It was woven into the ordinary movement of life, and still, sleep arrived. It came beside storms, bells, crying infants, animals, and fading coals. The body accepted what the household could provide. Breathing slowed, muscles softened, and darkness carried the night forward. You may allow the same slow rhythm to carry you. Nothing needs to be completed before rest begins. As the hours deepen, the night becomes a quiet measure of time. Before household clocks were common, people read darkness to many smaller signs. The moon offered one of the clearest guides. Its position changed across the sky, while its shape changed slowly across the month. A bright moon could make fields, roads, and courtyards visible. On such nights, people sometimes traveled, worked, or visited later than usual. A new moon left the countryside much darker. Paths became uncertain, and familiar trees could disappear into the surrounding blackness. People who worked outdoors learned the moon's habits closely. Farmers, shepherds, sailors, and travelers watched its rising and setting. Stars also helped divide the night. Certain constellations appeared in familiar places during particular seasons. This knowledge did not require written charts. It could be learned through years of looking upward before dawn or after sunset. Clouds removed these celestial guides. On overcast nights, people depended more upon bells, fires, animals, and physical tiredness. A candle could serve as a rough clock. Its shortening length suggested how much of the evening had passed. Some candles were marked at intervals. As the wax burned downward, each mark represented an approximate period of time. The method was never perfectly accurate. Drafts, wick quality, wax, and temperature could change the burning speed. Oil lamps gave a different measure. A person might learn how long a certain amount of oil usually lasted. The falling level inside the lamp quietly recorded passing hours. When the oil was nearly gone, bedtime or dawn might be approaching. Sand glasses measured shorter periods more reliably. They were useful for cooking, work, religious duties, and watches aboard ships. Someone had to turn the glass when the sand finished falling. Timekeeping, therefore, remained an active household responsibility. Water clocks existed in several ancient societies. Flowing water moved from one vessel to another at a roughly measured rate. Such devices were more common in official, scholarly, religious, or wealthy settings. Most ordinary sleepers never kept one beside the bed. Mechanical clocks began appearing in medieval European towns. Early examples were large public machines rather than private household objects. Their bells mattered more than their faces. People heard the hour without needing to see a moving hand. At first, these clocks were not perfectly dependable. They required frequent adjustment and careful maintenance. Still, they changed how towns understood time. The night gradually became divided into announced and increasingly regular hours. A person waking in darkness could listen for the next bell. Its sound offered orientation within an otherwise shapeless night. There is no need to count those distant strokes. Let them pass one by one, growing softer each time. Religious bells had organized nights long before precise mechanical clocks. Monasteries divided prayer according to appointed hours. Ordinary townspeople also heard these bells. Even without joining the service, they recognized the pattern. In some places, evening prayer marked the end of labor. Morning bells then called people toward another day. Night prayer could also happen within the home. Families sometimes gathered before bed for familiar words and gestures. Prayer offered structure during uncertainty. It marked the household's passage from waking activity into sleep. A person waking between sleeps might pray alone. The darkness provided privacy for reflection, memory, or quiet hope. Others used the interval for practical work. A woman might check bread dough, mend cloth, or prepare something needed at dawn. Someone could add fuel to the fire. Another might inspect a sick child or listen for an animal in labor. The work was usually small and contained. Night encouraged tasks that could be done close to the hearth. Reading was possible for those with books, literacy, and enough light. These conditions were far from universal. Before printing became widespread, books were costly objects. Even after printed books became cheaper, many households owned very few. Religious texts were among the most common. A prayer book, Bible, devotional work, or collection of sermons might be read slowly. Reading aloud allowed several listeners to share one text. It also filled the evening with a steady human voice. The reader sat close to the candle or lamp. Everyone else could sew, carve, repair, or rest while listening. The page was brightest near the flame. Its outer edges faded softly into shadow. Reading for long periods could strain the eyes. Fuel was also expensive, so the evening session often remained brief. Stories did not depend upon written books. Most households carried a rich store of spoken tales, songs, memories, and local history. Older family members remembered events from before younger listeners were born. They described harvests, journeys, marriages, storms, and unusual winters. These stories connected generations inside the same room. They also gave shape to places beyond the range of the firelight. A traveler could bring news from another town. A sailor might describe distant ports, while a soldier remembered roads and camps. The story changed slightly with each retelling. Memory softened some details and strengthened others. No one expected every tale to be exact. Its value could lie in companionship, warning, humor, or wonder. And inns, nighttime conversation brought strangers together. People exchanged news while eating, drinking, and warming themselves. A shared table might include merchants, laborers, pilgrims, messengers, and local residents. Each person carried a different piece of the wider world. The evening could become lively, especially in busy towns. Yet the energy slowly faded as candles burned lower. One guest climbed the stairs. Another stretched beside the fire, while the innkeeper checked the doors. Some travelers slept on benches if beds were full. Others rested on floors near the warmth of the common room. A cloak became a blanket, and a bag became a pillow. Comfort depended upon tiredness as much as furniture. Outside, stable hands settled the horses. The animals needed food, water, and secure shelter before anyone could rest. The smell of hay and leather filled the stable. Horses shifted their weight and breathed into the cool air. A traveler might sleep above the stable or nearby. The sounds below became part of the unfamiliar night. Road travel created many such temporary bedrooms. Barns, religious houses, cottages, and roadside shelters received people after dark. Hospitality followed local customs and social expectations. A stranger might be welcomed warmly, questioned cautiously, or directed elsewhere. Pilgrims often depended upon charitable lodging. Monasteries, hospitals, and private homes sometimes offered a meal and a place to sleep. The word hospital once referred broadly to hospitality and shelter. Many early institutions served travelers as well as the sick. Sleeping halls could be crowded. Beds might stand close together, with curtains or partitions providing limited separation. Caregivers worked through the night. They carried lamps, brought water, and watched those who needed attention. Illness changed sleep for entire households. A fever, injury, or difficult birth kept relatives and neighbors awake. Medical understanding differed from modern practice. Still, people observed breathing, temperature, appetite, pain, and changes in behavior. Herbal drinks were sometimes offered before rest. Their ingredients and purposes varied widely by region and tradition. Warm liquids could bring comfort even when they did not cure an illness. The act of caring also reassured the patient. Dreams attracted special attention during sickness. A vivid dream might be interpreted as meaningful, especially during fever or uncertainty. Across many cultures, dreams were linked to the body, spirit, memory, or unseen forces. No single explanation dominated everywhere. Ancient Greek and Roman writers developed theories about dreams. Some treated them as divine messages, while others sought natural causes. Later, European traditions combined classical ideas with religious teaching and folklore. A dream could be spiritual, physical, or merely confusing. In Islamic scholarship, dreams were also studied and classified. Some were considered significant, while others came from ordinary thoughts. Chinese traditions connected dreams with health, emotion, spiritual life, and the balance of the body. Interpretations changed across periods and schools. Japanese dream beliefs also drew from local, Buddhist, and Chinese influences. Certain dreams were welcomed as fortunate signs. Ordinary people did not always consult learned theories. They discussed dreams with family, friends, healers, or religious figures. A frightening dream could disturb the morning. A pleasant one might be remembered through the entire day. Many dreams, however, disappeared within moments. The sleeper opened their eyes and returned to chores before the images could settle. People sometimes try to encourage good dreams. Prayers, protective objects, herbs, sleeping positions, and rituals all played a part. A small charm might hang near the bed. A religious image or written verse could offer comfort during darkness. These practices reveal a simple human wish. People wanted sleep to feel safe, restorative, and peaceful. You can let these old beliefs remain gentle and distant. Nothing in them needs to follow you into your own dreams. The physical body also shaped nighttime experience. Heavy meals, alcohol, illness, pregnancy, age, and labor changed the depth of sleep. A worker exhausted by harvesting might sleep quickly. Someone worried about debt or family could remain awake beside the same fire. Older adults often woke earlier or slept more lightly. Children could fall asleep amid noise that kept adults alert. Pregnant women adapted positions and bedding for comfort. New parents learned to rest whenever an infant allowed. The experience of sleep was therefore always personal. Shared customs created a pattern, but every body moved differently within it. The same remains true tonight. There is no correct moment when sleep must arrive. A person may drift away during a story. Another may listen until the final lamp is extinguished. In the old inn, the common room is almost empty now. The last traveler has stopped speaking, and the fire settles behind its iron grate. A bell sounds somewhere beyond the roof. No one counts it carefully because the hour no longer matters. The horses are quiet in the stable. The road will wait until daylight returns. For now, the building rests beneath the moon. Every temporary bed becomes sufficient, and every unfinished story can continue another night. Beyond the inn, a larger household sleeps behind thicker walls. A manor or castle contains many different knights beneath one roof. Popular imagination often places every medieval sleeper inside a grand stone chamber. In reality, only a small minority lived in such surroundings. Even within a castle, comfort varied greatly. The lord's chamber, the servants' quarters, and the guardroom offered very different beds. A wealthy bedchamber could contain a large wooden bed with curtains. Chests, benches, stools, and devotional objects stood nearby. The bed might be covered with embroidered cloth, fine linen, wool blankets, and feather-filled layers. These textiles displayed wealth as clearly as carved furniture. Bright colors appeared even in rooms now remembered as gray stone. Dyed fabrics softened walls and made the chamber feel warmer. Stone buildings could hold cold for many hours. Wall hangings, rugs, shutters, and bed curtains reduced the movement of chilly air. A fireplace helped when fuel was plentiful. Yet even a large fire warmed the chamber unevenly. Close to the hearth, the air could feel almost comfortable. Near the windows and outer walls, winter remained quietly present. The most important sleepers often rested in the warmest and safest rooms. Their chambers were usually placed away from busy entrances. Privacy, however, was never complete by modern standards. Servants entered to tend fires, bring water, arrange clothing, and prepare the room. A personal servant might sleep nearby. This allowed someone to respond quickly during illness, travel, or an unexpected disturbance. Children of wealthy families often slept with nurses or attendants. Their nighttime world still depended upon shared care. Lower-ranking servants found simpler places. They might sleep in small rooms, lofts, corridors, kitchens, or near their work. A cook's helper could rest close to the kitchen. A stable worker might sleep near horses that required attention before dawn. Guards slept according to rotating duties. Some rested while others washed gates, walls, courtyards, and storage rooms. A guard room might contain benches, pallets, or simple beds. Weapons and heavy clothing remained close at hand. This sleep was practical rather than private. A bell, footstep, or a changing watch could wake several people together. The Great Hall also became a sleeping space in many households. After meals and business ended, servants arranged bedding upon the floor. Rushes, mats, blankets, and portable pallets transformed the room. By morning, much of this bedding could be removed again. The hall's purpose changed with the hour. It was public during the day and more intimate after darkness. A few embers remained beneath the ash. Their faint warmth helped those sleeping closest to the hearth. Those farther away relied upon cloaks and blankets. They learned which parts of the room were least exposed to drafts. There is no need to keep track of every sleeper. Let the hall fill gently, then become still. In a farmhouse, the arrangement was usually smaller but equally flexible. One room might hold several generations and many daily activities. The best bed could belong to the household's older married couple. Younger relatives used smaller beds, benches, lofts, or floor pallets. A servant or hired worker might sleep within the same building. Employment often included food and a place to rest. During harvest, additional workers created crowded nights. Temporary bedding was placed wherever dry space remained. Everyone rose early. So elaborate. Bedtime routines were unnecessary. Tired bodies settled quickly after long hours outdoors. Clothing was removed in stages according to warmth and custom. Valuable garments were folded carefully rather than left on the floor. Shoes could be placed where they were easy to find in darkness. A sudden early task required a quick beginning. A small lamp might be left ready, though not always burning. Fuel was saved whenever the household could manage without light. Beside the bed, a chamber pot reduced the need to walk outside. This was especially useful during cold or wet weather. Such objects were ordinary household tools. They were made from pottery, metal, wood, or other available materials. In wealthier homes, servants emptied and cleaned them. In modest homes, the task belonged to whoever rose first. Nighttime hygiene was practical rather than elaborate. Water for washing had to be carried, heated, and carefully used. People washed faces and hands more often than entire bodies. Full bathing depended upon place, season, labor, and available facilities. Clean linen helped maintain comfort. Undergarments absorbed sweat and could be washed more easily than heavy outer clothing. Beds also required regular attention. Mattresses were opened, shaken, beaten, aired, and sometimes refilled. Sunlight was especially valuable for bedding. Families carried blankets and mattresses outdoors when weather allowed. Fresh air reduced dampness and unwanted odors. Sun-warmed cloth made the next night feel noticeably more pleasant. Herbs were sometimes placed among stored linens. Lavender, rosemary, mint, and other plants added fragrance according to local custom. Their scent did not create a perfectly clean modern room. It offered freshness within the household methods available. Insects were a familiar difficulty in many periods. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs could appear in homes of every social class. People did not simply ignore them. They washed cloth, aired bedding, swept rooms, used herbs, and replaced infested materials. A traveler might inspect an unfamiliar bed before lying down. Reputation for clean bedding could matter greatly to an inn. Beds with removable straw offered one practical advantage. The filling could be discarded when it became dirty or uncomfortable. Mattress covers could then be washed or repaired. New straw restored some softness to the sleeping place. Feather beds required different care. They were shaken, aired, and protected because their filling was costly. Household inventories sometimes described bedding in careful detail. These records show how much value families placed upon sleep materials. Sheets, blankets, pillows, and bed curtains could represent years of labor. They were preserved, inherited, repaired, and passed onward. A young couple might receive bedding at marriage. This helped establish the physical center of a new household. The bed therefore carried emotional meaning as well as practical value. Birth, illness, conversation, rest, and death all occurred around it. For ordinary people, the sleeping place witnessed much of family life. It was not hidden away from every important moment. In crowded city housing, beds could be used in shifts. One person rested while another worked during different hours. This practice appeared where space was expensive and labor schedules differed. A bed remained occupied even when the sleeper changed. Apprentices often lived with their masters. They ate, worked, and slept within the same household or workshop. An apprentice might sleep beneath a workbench, in a loft, or beside other young workers. Home and employment were closely connected. Shops closed to customers at night, but the building did not become empty. Families lived above, behind, or within the working space. Tools were put away, shutters secured, and goods covered. Then the workshop slowly became a sleeping household. Urban streets remained active longer than rural lanes. Taverns, ovens, carts, and watchmen created a more layered night. Yet the brightness was still limited. A few lamps did not remove the darkness between them. Residents learned the sounds of nearby trades. A baker's oven, a smith's early hammer, or a cart's wheels marked familiar hours. Noise was not constant everywhere. Many streets became deeply quiet after gates closed and fires were covered. A person lying near the street heard voices through shutters. Those sounds faded as travelers reached shelter. In upper rooms, heat from the day could linger during summer. During winter, the same rooms became exposed to wind beneath the roof. Poor families adapted with whatever materials they possessed. Old clothing, sacks, and patched blankets added necessary layers. A folded garment could become a child's pillow. Several children might sleep across one mattress to share warmth. Parents listened from nearby rather than through modern monitors. A change in breathing or movement could wake them quickly. Babies sometimes slept in cradles, baskets, drawers, or small beds. The safest arrangement depended upon household space and custom. Historical infant care varied widely and changed over time. No single method belonged to every family. Some infants were wrapped firmly in cloth. Swaddling could keep the child warm and reduce movement. In other settings, babies wore looser garments. Climate, medical ideas, family tradition, and available fabric influenced the choice. Nurses and relatives shared nighttime care when possible. In larger households, several adults might respond to a waking child. In poorer homes, an exhausted mother often managed with little assistance. Her sleep followed the infant's needs rather than the clock. The same was true for many fathers and siblings. A crying baby could wake the entire room after feeding or comforting. The household slowly settled again. Darkness made each movement quieter and more deliberate. A candle was not always lit. Familiar hands could find blankets, water, and the cradle by memory. This physical memory made darkness less confusing. People knew the distance between bed, door, hearth, and window. They also knew the floor's uneven boards. A certain creak belonged near the chest, and another beside the doorway. Night transformed sight, but strengthened attention to touch and sound. The room became a map learned through repetition. You may let your own room feel simple in the same way. Nothing needs to be seen clearly before sleep. Somewhere in the manor, a servant checks the final ember. Somewhere above a shop, a family turns beneath patched blankets. In the farmhouse, straw settles softly beneath tired bodies. In the castle hall, the last whispered conversation fades. Rich and poor sleepers did not share equal comfort. Yet all depended upon fabric, warmth, habit, and the presence of others. The bed was rarely only a private retreat. It belonged to the larger rhythm of household life. For now, every door remains closed against the night. The walls hold their quiet warmth until morning returns. You may allow these rooms to disappear one by one. Their curtains close gently, and their sleepers drift beyond hearing, beyond the walls of homes. Many people slept beneath less certain roofs. Their rest followed roads, fields, ships, camps, and changing weather. A traveler on foot often planned each day around available shelter. Reaching a village before darkness could matter more than covering another mile. Roads were uneven, and signs were limited. Without moonlight, even a familiar path could become difficult to follow. A roadside inn offered food, warmth, and company. Yet not every traveler could afford a private room or even a proper bed. Some slept in barns, stables, porches, or kitchens. A dry corner beside animals could be preferable to an exposed roadside. Hay provided softness and insulation. A cloak, bundle, or folded saddlebag might support the head. Travelers learned to keep important possessions close. Money, letters, tools, and food could be placed beneath clothing or bedding. Boots were often kept nearby. Morning departures began early, and a traveler needed to dress before the road became crowded. Pilgrims frequently rested in shared shelters. Their journeys brought together people from different regions, occupations, and social classes. A large sleeping hall might contain rows of strangers. Quiet conversation continued until fatigue overcame the room. Some pilgrims prayed before sleeping. Others checked sore feet, repaired clothing, or divided food for the next day. The journey itself created deep tiredness. Even a rough floor could feel welcoming after many hours of walking. Merchants traveled with heavier responsibilities. Their goods required protection from weather, theft, and accidental damage. At night, wagons were arranged in courtyards or guarded areas. Animals were fed before the drivers allowed themselves to rest. A merchant might wake more than once to listen. The ordinary sounds of horses and ropes offered reassurance that everything remained in place. Messengers faced greater urgency. A royal letter, legal order, or business document could require travel through unusual hours. They changed horses when possible and slept briefly between stages. Their rest was shaped by distance rather than sunset. Coach passengers sometimes dozed while moving. The rocking carriage, wooden wheels, and rough roads made such sleep uneven. A folded coat softened the seat. Another passenger's shoulder might become an accidental pillow. The body can learn to rest in imperfect conditions. Exhaustion gradually turns repeated motion into a kind of rhythm. If your own bed feels still uncomfortable tonight, you may notice its quietness. Nothing is moving beneath you except your breathing. Shepherds also slept away from permanent homes. During certain seasons, they remained close to flocks through the night. A small shelter, cloak, or simple hut protected them from wind and dew. Dogs often rested nearby. The shepherd's sleep was light when animals were vulnerable. A change in the flock's movement could wake an experienced listener. Lambing season brought especially broken nights. Newborn animals sometimes needed warmth, assistance, or protection. The work was tiring, but it followed a familiar cycle. Quiet periods allowed the shepherd to sleep again before dawn. In mountain regions, herders moved animals between seasonal pastures. Temporary shelters became summer homes for weeks or months. Beds might consist of wooden platforms, grass, wool blankets, or hides. Comfort came from dryness and shelter more than decoration. The night sky appeared unusually wide in such places. With no city lights, stars filled nearly every clear space above. People used those stars for orientation and timekeeping. Their slow movement helped reveal how far the night had regressed. Farm workers also slept outdoors during busy harvests. Remaining near the fields saved time during the shortest and most demanding season. Haystacks, wagons, and temporary huts offered resting places. Groups sometimes slept close together for warmth and safety. Harvest work continued only while conditions allowed. Rain could interrupt the schedule and give exhausted workers unexpected rest. During dry weather, dawn arrived with immediate purpose. Tools were lifted again before the sun grew hot. Soldiers faced different sleeping conditions. Campaigns rarely provided the comfort of permanent barracks. In camp, they rested in tents, huts, barns, or open ground. Rank influenced space, bedding, and protection from weather. A simple bedroll might contain a blanket and spare clothing. Straw, leaves, or grass could soften the earth beneath it. The ground slowly drew warmth from the body. Experienced soldiers placed insulating material below themselves whenever possible. Cloaks served as coats by day and blankets by night. Shoes, packs, and weapons remained close. guards divided darkness into watches. While most of the camp slept, a smaller group remained awake. When one watch ended, another group was roused. The newly awakened soldiers stepped into cold air while others lay down. This created a camp where sleep continually moved from person to person. Someone was always waking as another began to rest. Not every military night was tense. Many consisted of waiting, routine, and quiet discomfort. Soldiers mended clothing, cleaned equipment, cooked simple food, and told familiar stories. Campfires became temporary hearths. The flames offered warmth but also smoke. Sleepers shifted positions as the wind changed direction. Rain entered poorly made shelters. Blankets became damp, and morning began without anyone feeling fully rested. During long periods in one place, camps grew more organized. Wooden huts, drainage channels, and raised bedding improved conditions. Permanent forts offered stronger shelter. Barracks placed many men in shared rooms, often on simple bunks or platforms. Military sleep was disciplined by bells, drums, or spoken orders. Rest ended when duty required it, regardless of personal preference. Sailors understood this division even more clearly. A ship could never be left entirely unattended. The crew worked in watches throughout the night. Some men handled sails and navigation, while others slept below. Hammocks were hung close together in crowded spaces. Their gentle swing followed the ship's motion. A hammock also used space efficiently. When empty, it could be rolled away to clear the deck below. Sailors sometimes slept in their clothing. Sudden weather changes required them to return to duty quickly. The air below deck could be warm, damp, and poorly ventilated. Salt, wood, rope, food, and many bodies shaped its smell. Water moved against the hull without pause. Timbers creaked as the vessel flexed through waves. For an inexperienced traveler, these sounds could prevent sleep. For a sailor, their familiar pattern often became reassuring. An unusual silence or unfamiliar movement might wake him faster than ordinary noise. Experience taught the body what to ignore. Naval bells marked time through each watch. The sequence repeated every half hour, giving structure to darkness. No one needed to see a clock. The number of bell strikes told the crew where they stood within the watch. Fishing boats followed tides, currents, and the habits of fish. Crews could leave shore while villages still slept. A fisherman might rest during the afternoon after working through the night. His household adjusted meals and duties around this reverse schedule. On rivers and canals, boat families sometimes lived aboard their vessels. Sleeping spaces were built into narrow cabins. Every object had to fit carefully. Benches became beds, storage hid beneath them, and cooking occurred only a few steps away. Water created constant gentle movement. Passing boats, locks, bridges, and changing currents interrupted rest. Yet a boat could also feel deeply familiar. The same ropes, boards, and small sounds returned each evening. Night workers on land experienced similar rhythms. Bakers entered warm workrooms while most shutters remained closed. The first task was often to prepare or tend the oven. Firelight illuminated flour, wooden tables, and rising dough. Baking schedules depended upon local demand and oven design. Work began early enough for bread to be ready after sunrise. The baker's family might sleep nearby. The smell of warm bread slowly entered the house before morning. Servants also rose before their employers. Fires needed lighting, water needed carrying, and rooms required preparation, a household could appear to wake naturally. In reality, someone had already been working in the dark. Kitchen servants moved carefully among pots and tools. Their first light came from embers, candles, or a newly lit lamp. Stable workers began with animals. Horses expected feeding and cleaning before riders or carriages were ready. Milkmaids followed the needs of cattle rather than clocks. Animals established regular routines that could not wait for late sleepers. Market sellers traveled toward towns before dawn. Their carts carried vegetables, eggs, fish, cloth, or handmade goods. They used lanterns on dark roads. The small light revealed ruts, stones, and the breath of animals in cold air. Approaching a city, they joined other early travelers. The quiet road gradually became a line of carts and footsteps. Night watchmen were preparing to finish as these workers arrived. One working day quietly handed the streets to another. In some cities, gates opened at appointed times. People waited nearby until guards allowed movement through them. Morning therefore began as a public event. Bells, gates, markets, animals, and human voices returned in layers. Before that change, darkness belonged to the watch. The sleeping population trusted a few workers to remain alert. Fire watchers were especially important. Dense wooden neighborhoods could be destroyed quickly by an unattended flame. They inspected streets, called warnings, and sometimes carried equipment for raising an alarm. Their work was often repetitive and cold. Most nights passed without disaster, which was exactly the desired result. Midwives also traveled through sleeping streets. Birth rarely followed convenient hours. A messenger might knock at her door after midnight. She gathered necessary items and followed a lantern toward another household. Inside, relatives heated water, prepared cloth, and waited. Sleep disappeared from the home until the child arrived. Afterward, exhaustion settled across everyone present. The midwife continued working while the family rested in brief intervals. Healers, priests, and neighbors could also be called during the night. Communities depended upon people willing to wake for others. Such duties made sleep a shared resource. One person's rest could be interrupted to protect another person's life or comfort. Children learned this simply by observing. They heard footsteps leaving and understood that some work belonged to darkness. Not all nighttime activity was necessary labor. Festivals, weddings, and seasonal celebrations sometimes continue long after sunset. Extra candles and torches transform familiar spaces. Music, food, dancing, and conversation held people awake. These occasions were memorable, partly because they broke ordinary patterns. A late night felt special in a world usually guided by daylight. The following morning often began more slowly. People have always understood the need to recover after celebration. Religious vigils also extended wakefulness. Communities remained together in prayer, song, or remembrance. Fasting days, feast days, funerals, and holy nights altered regular schedules. The calendar shaped sleep as much as the clock. There were also private reasons to remain awake. Grief, excitement, love, worry, and anticipation have always delayed sleep. A young person might lie awake before a journey. A parent might listen for a child returning home. A farmer could worry about frost. A sailor's family could listen to wind moving from the sea. Historical sleep was not automatically calmer than modern sleep. The human mind carried unfinished thoughts in every century, yet darkness offered fewer bright distractions. Once conversation ended and the lamp was extinguished, there was little to watch. The mind might wander, pray, remember, or gradually lose its direction. Sleep arrived without a glowing screen marking each minute. You do not need to follow the remaining minutes either. The night can continue without being measured. The shepherd has heard nothing unusual among the flock. The sailor's watch is nearly complete. The soldier settles deeper beneath his cloak. The baker's oven begins to warm the sleeping street. A market cart moves slowly toward the city gate. Above it, the stars fade so gradually that no one notices the exact moment. Some people are waking, while others are only beginning to rest. Across the old world, sleep moves quietly from one life to another. You may remain wherever your thoughts feel most comfortable. The road, ship, field, and camp can all drift beyond the horizon now. As the stars begin to fade above the road, another kind of night is slowly taking shape. Towns are learning to remain awake for longer hours. For much of history, darkness limited public life. Once shops closed and gates were secured, most activity moved indoors. This changed gradually rather than suddenly. Better lamps, busier trade, and growing cities extended the useful evening. Early street lighting was often irregular. A few lamps illuminated important crossings, gates, bridges, or wealthy neighborhoods. Other streets remained almost completely dark. A person could move from a pool of light into deep shadow within several steps. Some households were required to place lamps near their doors. These rules differed between cities and were not always followed. A lamp outside one home helped more than the household itself. It became a small contribution to the safety of the street. Lighting required workers, fuel, and maintenance. Someone had to clean the lamp, trim its wick, and light it each evening. Lamplighters became familiar figures in later European towns. They moved from post to post as daylight disappeared. Each flame appeared separately. A dark street slowly became a chain of warm points stretching into the distance. In the morning, the lamps were extinguished. The city returned to daylight until the same careful routine began again. Oil lamps improved over time. Better designs controlled the flow of fuel and produced steadier flames. Whale oil, vegetable oils, and other fuels were used in different places. Cost and availability shaped which streets received light. Later, gas lighting brought a stronger glow to many 19th century cities. It changed the appearance of streets, shops, and public buildings. Gaslight was still softer than modern electric lighting. Yet to people accustomed to candles, it could seem remarkably bright. The illuminated city invited longer evenings. Shops remained open later, and pedestrians felt more confident after sunset. Theater audiences could leave performances beneath street lamps. Workers and servants traveled home through streets that were no longer entirely hidden. Not every resident welcomed the change. Brighter nights could feel unfamiliar, wasteful, or disruptive. Some people worried that late activity encouraged disorder. Others celebrated the convenience and growing energy of city life. Both reactions reveal how deeply darkness had shaped expectations. Night had once carried a stronger command to withdraw. You can let the lamps appear one by one without following them. Their glow remains distant and gentle. Taverns had long extended social life beyond daylight. They offered warmth, food, drink, news, and temporary companionship. A tavern's evening depended upon its location. A village room felt different from one near a port, market, or city gate. Farm workers might gather after seasonal labor. Craftsmen discussed prices, tools, local events, and household concerns. Travelers added stories from elsewhere. News often moved through spoken conversation before printed reports reached every community. The room could become noisy, but not always. Some evenings consisted only of low voices, wooden cups, and a fire settling nearby. Closing time was shaped by custom, law, and the patience of the keeper. Eventually, shutters closed and customers returned home. Alcohol affected sleep in ways people noticed even without modern terminology. It could bring early drowsiness but lead to lighter rest. Historical medical writers sometimes warned against excess before bed. Household advice often recommended moderation for comfort and health. Warm ale or wine was also used as a soothing evening drink. Spices, herbs, or honey could be added when available. The drink itself was only part of the ritual. Sitting near warmth and leaving the day's work behind also encouraged relaxation. Coffee created a different kind of evening. From its early spread through the Middle East, it became associated with wakeful conversation. Coffee houses appeared in many cities across the Ottoman world. They offered spaces for talk, games, music, news, and business. The drink helped people remain alert after dark. It supported a social night that was less dependent upon alcohol. Coffee houses later became important in European cities as well. Merchants, writers, officials, and curious residents gathered around shared tables. Printed papers and pamphlets circulated there. One reader could tell several others what had happened beyond the city. Conversation sometimes continued late. The combination of caffeine, company, and public lighting extended wakefulness. Tea produced its own evening customs. In some households, it became part of hospitality and quiet family conversation. Like coffee, tea contains caffeine. Its growing popularity gently altered when some people felt ready to sleep. Chocolate drinks also appeared in prosperous European homes and public houses. They were expensive at first and often served with sugar. These new beverages connected sleep to global trade. Leaves, beans, and cacao traveled great distances before reaching an evening cup. The ordinary household did not adopt them all at once. Access depended upon money, geography, and changing local habits. For many rural families, traditional drinks remained more familiar. Water, milk, herbal infusions, ale, and broth continued beside newer choices. The evening drink could mark a transition. Work ended, hands rested, and the household gathered around one final warm cup. Reading habits were changing at the same time. Printed books gradually became more available across parts of the world. Literacy expanded unevenly, but more people gained access to pamphlets, newspapers, almanacs, and inexpensive stories. A household might read aloud after supper. One person followed the page while others listened and completed quiet work. better lamps made this easier. A steadier flame allowed reading to continue without constant adjustment. Still, the reader needed to sit close. The text remained surrounded by darkness beyond the lamp circle. Newspapers encouraged attention to events occurring far away. Their arrival could make the evening feel connected to a larger world. A merchant followed shipping news. A family read about weather, politics, crime, discoveries, and distant ceremonies. This information did not always calm the mind before sleep. Worrying news disturbed earlier readers just as it can disturb people today. Yet newspapers also became familiar rituals. Folding the pages signaled that the day's public concerns were finished. Novels offered another way to extend the evening. A compelling story could keep a reader awake beyond the intended hour. The phrase about reading one more chapter has a long history in practice. Artificial light made that temptation easier to follow. In wealthy homes, private libraries and sitting rooms separated evening leisure from the sleeping chamber. In modest homes, reading still occurred near the common fire. The bedroom, kitchen, and sitting room might remain one shared space. Sewing continued beside the reader. Clothing always required mending. An evening offered time for careful handwork. Spinning was another common indoor task. Fibers could be prepared while conversation or storytelling continued. The repetitive movement had its own rhythm. Hands worked almost automatically as the mind listened or wandered. Carving, net repair, basket making, and tool maintenance filled other evenings. Night was quieter, but not necessarily idle. Households used expensive light carefully. Several people gathered around one lamp rather than lighting separate rooms. This encouraged shared activity. The same small flame served reading, sewing, conversation, and the preparation of tomorrow's work. When someone carried the candle away, the room changed immediately. Others moved closer to the fire or ended their tasks. Candles could also reveal differences in wealth. Fine wax candles burned cleaner and smelled more pleasant than cheaper alternatives. Beeswax was valued but costly. Many ordinary European households used candles made from animal fat. Tallow candles could smoke, drip, and produce a noticeable odor. Their wicks required regular trimming. Rushlights offered a cheaper source of illumination. A dried rush was peeled and coated with fat. The resulting light was modest and burned for a limited time. Yet it was enough for many simple evening activities. A family could prepare several rushlights together. Their creation turned local plants and household fat into usable light. Oil lamps served similar needs elsewhere. The available fuel came from olives, seeds, fish, animals, or other regional resources. Every flame represented stored sunlight in some form. Plants had grown, animals had fed, and people had gathered the fuel. Before electricity, light always felt material. It could be measured in candles, oil, wood, labor, and money. For that reason, darkness was not merely an inconvenience. It was also the economical choice. Extinguishing a lamp saved valuable fuel. Going to bed earlier reduced the cost of remaining awake. The poorest households had the strongest reason to follow natural light. A long evening of illumination might be an unaffordable luxury. Moonlight could therefore become useful household assistance. Work was moved closer to a bright window when the moon allowed. Full moon nights sometimes encouraged visits between neighbors. The road remained visible without consuming lamp oil. In rural communities, this created a subtle monthly rhythm. Certain evenings felt naturally more open and sociable. Winter gatherings also helped make darkness easier. Neighbors met in one home, sharing the cost of warmth and light. They brought sewing, repairs, food, songs, and stories. The gathering served both practical work and companionship. Several candles in one room were more efficient than one candle in every house. Shared firelight made the evening brighter. Young people welcomed these gatherings for conversation and courtship. Older residents exchanged news and watched the work progress. The night could remain calm even when the room was full. Repeated tasks and familiar voices created a steady background. Eventually, one family left, then another. Lanterns moved slowly between homes before disappearing behind closed doors. In growing industrial towns, however, work began to resist the natural boundaries of sunset. Workshops had always used lamps when necessary. Larger factories brought greater pressure to organize labor by fixed hours. Water power, steam power, and mechanical production changed the pace of work. Time became increasingly measured by schedules. Factory bells called workers at appointed hours. The day was no longer shaped only by available sunlight. Artificial lighting allowed some factories to operate early, late, or through the night. This change developed differently across industries and regions. Night shifts divided sleep in a new way. Workers rested during daylight, while machines continued without them. The arrangement was difficult for many bodies. Noise, crowded housing, and irregular schedules reduced the quality of rest. Industrial workers often lived close to factories. Their nights included whistles, wheels, carts, and other mechanical sounds. The town no longer became fully quiet after sunset. Production created a continuous background unknown to earlier villages. Even so, families developed routines within this new environment. Curtains were closed, children settled, and tired workers found whatever rest they could. Some households rented beds to shift workers. One worker left for the factory as another returned to sleep. The bed itself followed the industrial schedule. It remained useful throughout the entire day. This practice was not universal, but it appeared in crowded working districts. Housing costs made every sleeping space valuable. Clock time became more important. Workers needed to wake for exact shifts rather than simply rising with daylight. Affordable clocks and watches gradually entered more homes. They brought precision closer to the bed. Alarm clocks later reduced dependence upon other people. Before them, workers used bells, factory whistles, neighbors, and hired callers. In some British towns, people known as knocker-uppers woke customers for work. They tapped upper windows using long poles. Their early rounds belonged to the industrial morning. The worker paid to be awakened at the required time. Others used short sticks or rattles against lower windows. The caller continued until someone showed signs of being awake. It was a simple service built around punctuality. Sleep now had to end at a scheduled minute. Factory whistles served entire neighborhoods at once. Their sound entered bedrooms and announced the beginning of another shift. For some, the whistle meant rising. For others returning from night work, it meant they could finally lie down. The modern distinction between day and night was beginning to blur. Labor, entertainment, and transport increasingly crossed the old boundary. Railways strengthened this change. Trains followed published timetables and moved passengers through darkness. Stations required lamps, signals, workers, and waiting rooms. A traveler could begin or finish a journey long after sunset. Railway time also encouraged regional standardization. Local sun time became inconvenient when trains linked many towns. Before standard time, noon occurred when the sun reached its local height. Nearby towns could keep slightly different clock readings. Railway schedules worked better when everyone agreed upon the same time. Clocks became synchronized across wider distances. This changed how people thought about lateness and sleep. A few minutes gained greater social and economic importance. Yet inside many bedrooms, old habits remained. People still warmed beds, shared rooms, listened for bells, and slept beneath heavy quilts. Change entered gradually. The candle did not disappear when the gas lamp arrived, and the hearth remained after clocks became common. Old and new rhythms overlapped for generations. A factory worker might still divide sleep after waking naturally in darkness. A rural household might follow sunset, while a nearby city shone with gaslight. One region could feel modern, while another remained largely unchanged. There is no single night before electricity. There are thousands of nights, each moving at a different pace. You may let all those clocks soften now. Their bells, whistles, and ticking hands do not belong to your room. The coffee house closes, and the final newspaper is folded. A lamplighter completes his distant route. In one cottage, a rushlight flickers beside quiet sewing. In another, moonlight allows the lamp to remain unused. The factory continues beyond the sleeping street, but its sound has become low and even. Tired households settle around it. The old darkness has not vanished yet. It waits between every lamp, resting patiently beyond each window. And for a little longer, the night remains shaped by flame, habit, and the slow return of dawn. Beyond the gaslit streets, another transformation is approaching. Electric light will eventually change the meaning of evening more deeply than any earlier lamp. At first, electricity did not enter every home. Early systems appeared in factories, public buildings, theaters, streets, and wealthy residences. Many people first encountered electric light as a public spectacle. Its steady brightness seemed almost unnatural beside a wavering flame. Unlike candles, an electric lamp did not shorten while it burned. It produced no visible wick, dripping wax, or bowl of oil. The light could remain strong for many hours. Darkness no longer announced the end of activity with the same authority. Still, adoption was gradual and uneven. Cities, rural districts, rich families, and poor families gained access at very different times. A street could contain electric lamps, while nearby homes continued using gas. A wealthy parlor might glow brightly, while servants' rooms remained dim. Some people distrusted the new technology. Wires, switches, and unfamiliar equipment raised understandable concerns. Others welcomed the cleaner light. Electric lamps reduced smoke and eliminated the need to carry open flames between rooms. The change affected household routines slowly. Candles remained available during failures, and oil lamps continued serving homes beyond electrical networks. In many places, several lighting technologies existed together. Firelight, gaslight, oil lamps, and electricity shared the same historical moment. A child might read beneath an electric bulb while a grandparent remembered preparing rushlights. The distance between those experiences could be only one lifetime. Electric light made evening work easier, Sewing, reading, study, cooking, and cleaning could continue with less strain. It also made leisure easier to extend. Families played games, read books, listened to music, and entertained visitors later. Shops displayed goods after sunset. Restaurants, theaters, and cafes became brighter and more inviting. The night began to hold more possibilities. With each possibility, bedtime could move a little farther away. You do not need to follow the city into its brighter hours. You may remain beside the quieter window, watching the lamps from a distance. Before electric bedrooms became common, preparing a lamp was part of preparing for sleep. The wick was trimmed and the fuel checked. A candle needed a stable holder. Melted wax was cleared away, and matches or fire-making tools remained nearby. An oil lamp required cleaning. Soot gathered on chimneys and reduced the amount of useful light. A well-maintained lamp burned more evenly. Household knowledge included understanding flame height, wick length, and safe placement. Gas lighting brought different responsibilities. Fixtures needed valves, pipes, and careful use. A gas flame consumed air and produced heat. Rooms required ventilation, especially when several lights burned together. Some people complained of headaches, stale air, or damaged ceilings. The new brightness carried disadvantages alongside convenience. Electric lighting removed many of these problems. Yet early bulbs still produced heat and could be expensive. The ability to illuminate a bedroom instantly changed nighttime movement. A person no longer needed to protect a trembling flame while crossing the room. Reading in bed became easier. So did dressing, checking children, finding medicine, or responding to a nighttime sound. The bedroom gradually became a place for more than sleep. It could hold books, lamps, writing materials, and personal objects. Privacy also increased in many middle-class homes. New houses were designed with more specialized rooms. A separate bedroom became a stronger ideal. Parents, children, guests, and servants were assigned distinct spaces when money allowed. This development did not reach everyone. Crowded urban families continued sharing rooms and beds. Well into the modern era, housing reformers increasingly connected space, ventilation, and cleanliness with health. Bedrooms became subjects of public concern. Advice manuals recommended fresh air, regular bedding, and sensible room temperatures. Some suggestions were practical, while others reflected changing social ideals. Open windows were often praised. Fresh night air was believed to support stronger and healthier sleep. In polluted industrial cities, the outdoor air was not always fresh. Smoke from coal fires and factories settled over entire neighborhoods. A window could bring cooler air, but also soot, noise, and street odors. Families balanced ventilation against the conditions outside. Bedroom design reflected this compromise. Curtains, shutters, vents, and transom windows controlled air and privacy. Bed frames also changed. Metal bedsteads became increasingly common in the 19th century. They were promoted as easier to clean than heavily carved wooden beds. Their simpler surfaces offered fewer hidden spaces for insects. Iron and brass beds appeared in homes, institutions, hospitals, and boarding houses. They ranged from plain to highly decorative. Spring mattresses gradually replaced some older rope and straw supports. Metal springs offered a more resilient sleeping surface. Early designs varied in quality. Some squeaked loudly, sagged unevenly, or required frequent repair. Mattress manufacturing also expanded. Bedding became something more people could purchase rather than construct entirely at home. Cotton, wool, horsehair, and other fillings remained common. Later technologies would introduce even more materials. The bed slowly became standardized. Factory production encouraged familiar sizes, frames, and matching sheets. Before this standardization, beds could differ widely. Household furniture was often made locally or adapted across generations. A new manufactured bed represented industrial change inside the most private room. Machines now shape the surface beneath the sleeping body. Night clothes changed as well. Specialized garments became more common as textile production increased. Men's nightshirts were long, loose, and often made from linen or cotton. They offered warmth without the weight of daytime clothing. Women wore nightgowns that reflected changing fashions and household means. Some were plain, while wealthier examples included lace or embroidery. Children also gained dedicated sleeping garments. These made bedtime a more clearly defined stage of the evening. Pajamas entered Western wardrobes through cultural exchange with South and West Asia. The word itself came through languages of the region. Loose trousers and matching tops eventually became fashionable. Sleeping clothes. At first, they were more closely associated with men. Over time, pajamas spread across ages and genders. Their comfort suited changing ideas about private domestic life. Nightcaps remained useful in unheated bedrooms. As central heating expanded, they gradually became less necessary. A cap once protected the sleeper from a genuinely cold room. Later illustrations made it appear old-fashioned or humorous. The garment had not become foolish. The bedroom environment had simply changed around it. Central heating altered winter sleep profoundly. Instead of warming one hearth or one bed, entire homes could maintain more even temperatures. Early systems were available mainly to large buildings and wealthy households. Wider access developed slowly. Radiators, stoves, and heated pipes reduced the need for bed curtains and warming pans. Winter bedrooms became less severe. This comfort also changed architecture. Rooms could be larger, more separate, and farther from the main fire. The household no longer needed to gather so closely for warmth. Physical distance between family members became easier to maintain. Shared beds declined where housing and income allowed. Individual beds became associated with cleanliness, privacy, and independence. Children were increasingly encouraged to sleep separately. Advice about this changed across decades and social groups. Some reformers believed solitary sleep promoted discipline. Others emphasized health, space, and reduced disease transmission. Ordinary families adopted these ideals only when their homes made them possible. Advice cannot create an extra room by itself. Boarding houses still placed unrelated people close together. Workers, students, immigrants, and travelers rented rooms according to their means. A boarding room might contain several beds. Meals and washing facilities were often shared. Industrial cities attracted populations faster than housing could expand. Overcrowding remained common in many neighborhoods. Families sometimes took in lodgers to help pay rent. The stranger's bed became part of the household economy. Privacy was negotiated through curtains, schedules, and habit. A room could feel crowded, yet remain carefully organized. People learned who rose first and who returned late. Sleep depended upon cooperation among everyone sharing the space. Factories increasingly created nighttime populations. Textile mills, mines, railways, docks, and printing works operated beyond daylight. Some workers rotated between day and night shifts. This could make regular sleep especially difficult. Daytime sleep faced noise, sunlight, children, street traffic, and household activity. Thick curtains and family cooperation became valuable. The human body naturally responds to light and darkness. Bright morning light can make daytime sleep harder to maintain. People did not need modern laboratory terms to notice this. Night workers understood that sleeping by day felt different. They adapted through exhaustion, routine, and whatever quiet their homes could provide. Rest might arrive in one block or several shorter periods. Railway workers also followed irregular schedules. Engineers, guards, signal workers, and station staff covered every hour. Train whistles entered rural and urban nights. Their distant sound became part of the new industrial landscape. Some sleepers found the sound disruptive at first. Over time, it could become as familiar as an older church bell. The same happened with factory machinery. Constant noise sometimes faded into the background through repetition. Sudden silence could become more noticeable than the usual sound. Workers living nearby learned the rhythm of operating hours. Electric streetcars extended city movement into the evening. People could travel farther between work, entertainment, and home. This expanded choice also lengthened the day. A person could remain downtown after sunset and still return safely. Department stores turned shopping into evening leisure. Large windows displayed goods beneath strong artificial light. The brightness encouraged people to linger. Night became a time for looking, choosing, and social movement. Theaters also benefited from electric lighting. Stages became brighter, while exits and corridors became safer. Audiences returned home later. Urban bedtimes moved according to performances, transport, and social habits. Newspapers printed late editions. Printing presses operated to darkness to deliver fresh information by morning. Telegraph systems carried news across long distances. The modern day no longer ended when local conversation stopped. Later, radio brought voices directly into the evening home. Families gathered around a receiver after supper. Music, drama, weather, news, and comedy extended wakefulness without requiring anyone to leave the room. The household became connected to distant events after dark. The old spoken story remained, but it now arrived through wires and signals. Some listeners fell asleep near the radio. Others stayed awake for a favorite program, despite an early morning. Every new evening activity competed gently with sleep. Electricity did not force people to remain awake, but it made wakefulness easier. At the same time, work schedules became more exact. Alarm clocks, school times, trains, and factory shifts demanded punctual mornings. This created a growing tension. Evenings became longer while wake-up times remained fixed. Modern sleep loss did not begin with one invention. It emerged from many changes acting together. Artificial light, industrial schedules, entertainment, transport, and urban life all reshaped the night. The older pattern of sleeping soon after darkness became less practical. Bedtime turned into a decision rather than an environmental command. First sleep and second sleep became less visible in many records. Continuous nighttime sleep gained importance as the preferred ideal. This did not mean everyone suddenly stopped waking. Human beings continued to stir, dream, check children, and return to sleep. The interpretation changed. A midnight waking could now feel like an interruption rather than an expected interval. Medical advice increasingly described healthy sleep as one continuous period. Popular expectations gradually followed. Researchers still debate how common segmented sleep had been across earlier populations. Evidence differs by place, season, and source. What remains clear is that light exposure and social schedules influence sleep timing. The night people inhabit helps shape the sleep they experience. There is no need to decide which pattern is more natural tonight. Your body does not need a history lesson before it can rest. Let the electric streets remain far away. Behind one window, an old oil lamp is still being extinguished. Behind another, a new bulb glows above an open book. Two generations are living within different kinds of night. A railway whistle crosses the distance, then slowly disappears. The factories continue, but their rhythm grows softer in imagination. In a quiet bedroom, someone removes a nightcap because the room is finally warm enough. Elsewhere, another sleeper still pulls heavy curtains around the bed. Change never arrives everywhere at once. Old habits linger beside new technology for many years. For now, every lamp can be turned down. Every newspaper can be folded, and every train can continue without you. The brighter modern night waits beyond the curtains. Inside, the room grows calm enough for sleep to return. Even after electric light transformed many cities, darkness remained powerful across farms, villages, islands, and remote settlements. Rural electrification often arrived decades later than urban lighting. Many families continued using candles, kerosene lamps, and wood fires well into the 20th century. A child in one generation might grow up without electric light. That same child could later watch a switch brighten the entire room. The change felt practical before it felt historical. Evening chores became easier, and shadows no longer gathered so quickly around the table. Before that moment, the lamp still needed daily attention. Its glass chimney was cleaned, its wick trimmed, and its fuel carefully measured. Kerosene lamps produced brighter light than many older household lamps. They became widely used in places where electricity had not yet arrived. Their glow could illuminate a table well enough for reading or sewing. Yet the rest of the room remained softly dark. Families often gathered close together around this single source. The lamp created a small island of shared evening activity. One person read aloud, while another repaired clothing. Children completed lessons, and older relatives listened from nearby chairs. The lamp's quiet hiss joined the sounds of the room. Pages turned, needles moved, and the stove settled into a lower heat. When the fuel level dropped, everyone understood the message. The evening was approaching its natural end. There was little reason to illuminate an empty room. The lamp traveled with the person who needed it. A parent carried it toward the sleeping area. Behind them, the kitchen or sitting room returned immediately to darkness. This movement made bedtime visible to the household. Light withdrew from one space and entered another. After children settled, the lamp might return briefly to the table. Adults finished one last task before extinguishing it. The final darkness could arrive all at once. Without street light beyond the curtains, the night felt complete. You can let that darkness remain soft rather than empty. It asks nothing and hides nothing that needs your attention. In agricultural communities, seasonal work continued shaping sleep. Summer days were long, and useful light encouraged earlier rising. During harvest, families sometimes worked from dawn until evening. Sleep came quickly after meals, washing, and basic preparation. Winter produced a different rhythm. Outdoor work decreased, while darkness surrounded the household for more hours. People spent longer evenings repairing equipment, preserving food, spinning, carving, or planning the coming season. They might also sleep longer during winter, although duties and customs still varied. Animals required care no matter how late the sun appeared. Morning began with the stable, cowshed, or poultry yard. Human schedules followed the needs of living creatures. Farmers rarely needed an alarm when animals stirred nearby. Familiar calls announced that feeding time had arrived. A rooster was not a precise clock, but it belonged to the morning soundscape. So did buckets, gates, and footsteps crossing the yard. In fishing communities, tides remained equally important. The best departure time could occur before midnight or just before dawn. A family might eat its main meal at an unusual hour. Sleep was arranged around weather and water rather than social convention. The same was true among shepherds and seasonal workers. Their nights expanded or contracted according to immediate needs. Modern clock time encourages each day to resemble the next. Earlier lives often changed more noticeably across the year. This seasonal variation may have affected sleep duration and timing, yet no single pattern can describe every household. Some people took daytime naps when work allowed. Others rested briefly after the midday meal during hot seasons. Midday sleep was especially practical, where afternoon heat made labor difficult. Work resumed when the air became more comfortable. The evening then extended later than in colder climates. Nighttime social life developed around this cooler portion of the day. In Mediterranean and Middle Eastern communities, streets could grow lively after sunset. Families visited, shopped, talked, and walked in the cooler air. Children sometimes remained awake during these gatherings. Their sleep schedule followed the family rather than a separate strict bedtime. Elsewhere, children were sent to bed earlier than adults. Age, household space, work, and schooling all influenced bedtime. Before compulsory schooling, children's mornings often followed family labor. They helped with animals, water, fires, food, and younger siblings. School schedules gradually created more standardized wake-up times. Bedtime advice then became increasingly directed toward children. Parents were encouraged to establish regular routines. Washing, prayers, stories, and fixed sleeping hours became signs of orderly family life. These routines were not entirely new. What changed was the growing belief that they should apply consistently across many households. Advice books began describing the ideal bedroom. Fresh air, clean sheets, moderate temperature, and quiet were repeatedly recommended. Real homes could not always meet those ideals. A family living in one room had limited control over privacy and noise. Still, small bedtime rituals offered stability. A blanket was tucked, a candle removed, and a familiar phrase marked the end of day. Children sometimes slept with handmade dolls, cloth animals, or treasured objects. Such companions brought comfort long before modern toys filled bedrooms. A favorite blanket could serve the same purpose. Its smell and texture made an unfamiliar night feel more secure. Traveling children might sleep beside parents in inns or relatives' homes. Familiar closeness helped them settle within strange surroundings. Adults also depended upon familiar objects. A personal pillow, prayer book, cap, or night garment could make temporary lodging feel more comfortable. Habit plays a quiet role in sleep. The body learns repeated signals, even when no one consciously names them. The closing of shutters became one signal. The removal of shoes, the final prayer, and the extinguished flame became others. Smell also belonged to these routines. Wood smoke, clean linen, lamp oil, herbs, and cooling food marked the household night. Modern bedrooms often smell neutral by comparison. Earlier sleeping spaces carried stronger traces of daily work. A farmhouse bed might smell faintly of straw and wool. A sailor's hammock carried salt, rope, and damp wood. A city lodging room held coal smoke, soap, fabric, and the street below. A monastery dormitory smelled of stone, wax, and woolen clothing. These scents became ordinary through repetition. Familiarity allowed the sleeper to stop noticing them. The same happened with sound. A mill, bell, stream, or stable could seem loud to a visitor, but soothing to a resident. People often sleep best within a known soundscape. The brain learns which noises are harmless and which deserve attention. A mother recognized her own child's movement among many household sounds. A shepherd heard one restless animal within the flock. A sailor noticed a change in wind before fully waking. A mill worker could sleep beside machinery yet wake when it stopped. Sleep was therefore never complete separation from the world. Part of the mind remained gently connected to familiar surroundings. That connection could protect the household. It allowed rest while preserving some awareness of children, animals, weather, and fire. You may let your own surroundings become equally familiar now. Nothing needs to be examined, corrected, or understood. In many pre-electric homes, morning light entered gradually. Then curtains, shutters, or small windows softened the first brightness. There was rarely one sudden transition from night to day. The room slowly revealed its shapes again. A chair appeared first, then a chest, then the edge of the bed. Faces became visible without anyone touching a switch. This slow dawn allowed waking to unfold naturally when schedules permitted. Eyes opened, closed again, and adjusted to the returning light. In winter, people sometimes rose before daylight. The household recreated morning using embers and a small flame. Someone knelt beside the hearth and uncovered the previous night's coals. Dry material was added until the fire returned. This was one of the day's first successes. Warmth, hot water, and cooked food all depended upon that revived fire. Breakfast was not always elaborate. Bread, porridge, broth, leftovers, or a warm drink prepared the body for work. Beds were then opened to the air. Blankets were pulled back, and mattresses were shaken when time allowed. In homes using portable bedding, it was folded or moved aside. The sleeping room became active space once more. Night had left few permanent signs. Only rumpled cloth, cooled ash, and sleepy faces revealed that everyone had been elsewhere. Dreams might be mentioned over breakfast. A vivid image could invite laughter, concern, or interpretation. Most dreams vanished beneath ordinary responsibilities. Water had to be carried, animals fed, and doors opened. The practical morning gently replaced the mysterious night. Whatever happened in sleep gave way to visible tasks. This rhythm repeated through generations. Darkness gathered, the household withdrew, and daylight slowly restored the world. Electricity would eventually weaken that rhythm, but it never erased it completely. Human bodies still respond to light, warmth, habit, and repeated signals. Even now, dimness can prepare the mind for rest. A quiet routine can tell the body that nothing more is required. You do not need a candle or old farmhouse to feel that change. The room only needs to become less demanding. Imagine the final kerosene lamp being turned low. The wick shrinks, and the walls move gently back into shadow. The last page is folded closed. A child settles beneath a quilt, and an older voice finishes its story. Outside, the road is empty beneath a narrow moon. The farmyard, harbor, and village street have all become still. Morning will arrive when it is ready. Until then, the old darkness may continue holding every sleeper quietly. The old night has carried us through many rooms, across distant centuries, and beneath changing skies. We have rested beside Roman oil lamps, Egyptian rooftops, northern fires, and quiet monastery walls. We have seen straw mattresses, feather beds, woven mats, warm platforms, hammocks, benches, and folded quilts. Each sleeping place belonged to a different climate and way of life. Yet every sleeper hoped for comfort, warmth, safety, and morning. Before electricity, darkness placed clearer boundaries around the day. Work became harder when sunlight left the fields and streets. A candle could resist the night for a while. An oil lamp could keep conversation or sewing alive beside the hearth. But every flame required fuel, care, and attention. Eventually, the practical choice was often to let darkness return. Families then settled close to one another. Curtains closed, blankets were shared, and familiar sounds continued beyond the bed. Some sleepers rested in one long period. Others woke quietly between a first and second sleep. No pattern belonged to every person or every century. Sleep changed with season, age, health, work, wealth, and place. A farmer's night differed from a sailor's watch. A child's sleep differed from the rest of an exhausted parent. The monk rose for prayer, while the baker prepared an oven. The watchman walked beneath windows filled with sleeping families. Across the countryside, animals moved inside barns and sheds. Their breathing joined the wind, rain, insects, and distant water. People did not expect perfect silence. They learned which sounds were ordinary and which required attention. A creaking beam could be ignored. A child's altered breathing might wake a parent immediately. The sleeping mind remained gently connected to the household. Rest and awareness existed together throughout the night. Perhaps this is why old rooms can feel comforting in imagination. They were rarely empty even when they were dark. There was usually another person nearby. Beyond the wall, an animal shifted or a final ember quietly glowed. There is no need to remember every custom we have visited. The details may now begin to blend together. Let the wooden beds and stone chambers become softer. Let the roads, ships, and village lanes fade beyond thought. For centuries, night was guided by flame and moonlight. Then brighter streets slowly began changing the hours people kept. Gas lamps extended city evenings. Coffee houses, theaters, factories, and trains carried activity farther into darkness. Electric light eventually entered homes and made wakefulness easier. Bedtime became less connected to sunset and more connected to choice. The change brought comfort, safety, and opportunity. It also made the evening harder to leave behind. A book could remain open longer. Work could continue, and entertainment could fill every quiet hour. Modern life gradually encouraged one continuous period of sleep. Exact clocks and fixed morning schedules strengthened that expectation. Yet the human body did not become a machine. People still woke, shifted, dreamed, listened, and sometimes waited for sleep to return. Waking during the night does not mean that the night has failed. It can simply be one small part of resting. Earlier sleepers often accepted more variation. They adjusted a blanket, checked a fire, listened briefly, and settled again. You may offer yourself the same patience tonight. There is no need to force the next moment. Sleep does not need to be chased. It often arrives when the effort to find it has quietly ended. Imagine one final pre-electric household near the edge of a village. The day's work has already disappeared into memory. The floor has been swept and the tools are resting. A bowl and wooden spoon wait silently near the hearth. One small lamp remains on the table. Its flame bends gently whenever cooler air enters around the window. A family has already gone to bed behind a simple curtain. Their breathing is almost hidden beneath the sound of the fire. Outside, there are no engines or illuminated signs. The road lies pale beneath a scattering of stars. A horse rests in the stable. Somewhere farther away, a stream continues moving through the darkness. The person beside the lamp finishes one final line of reading. The page closes without urgency. The lamp is carried toward the bed. Its light passes across a chair, a wooden chest, and a folded piece of clothing. For a moment, the small room becomes visible. Then the flame is lowered, and every shape grows soft again. The darkness does not feel frightening. It feels familiar, expected, and complete. The household knows that daylight will return. Until then, nothing more needs to be produced or finished. Perhaps someone will wake during the deeper hours. They may hear the rain or notice the cooling air. They might pull the blanket higher. They might remember a dream or listen to another sleeper breathing. After a few quiet moments, tiredness may return. The second part of the night will carry them gently toward dawn. No one needs to know the exact hour. The moon and stars continue their movement without being watched. The fire becomes a red glow beneath gray ash. Its remaining warmth waits patiently for morning hands. You may let this final room become your own quiet shelter. The walls are calm, and the night outside asks nothing. Your breathing can remain exactly as it is. There is no special rhythm you need to create. Your body already knows how to become heavier. It has practiced this gentle surrender through every night of your life. Thoughts may still appear. They can pass like lanterns moving slowly along a distant road. There is no reason to follow them. Each light can continue beyond the village and disappear on its own. The old travelers have found their inns. The sailors have finished their watches, and the shepherds have heard nothing unusual. The monastery bell will not call you from bed. The factory whistle belongs to another century and another street. Every door from our journey is now closing softly. Every candle is becoming smaller. The Roman lamp goes dark. The Egyptian rooftop cools beneath the stars. The longhouse fire settles. The monastery dormitory grows quiet after the final returning footsteps. A quilt is unfolded across a warm kang. A futon rests peacefully upon the tatami. A hammock moves almost imperceptibly above the floor. A feather bed waits behind heavy curtains. In the farmhouse, children sleep beside familiar voices. In the city, the watchman completes his final round. Even the first electric bulb has been switched off. The bright modern evening can wait until another day. Nothing remains except darkness, warmth, and the slow movement of breath. If you have followed the entire journey, you may release it now. If parts have already disappeared, they do not need to return. History can continue without being remembered tonight. Morning will keep the facts that sleep allows you to forget. Let the villages, ships, workshops, and old bedrooms drift farther away. They have carried you as far as they needed to. The window is dark. The road is empty, and the final flame has vanished. The night will continue gently, even if you hear no more words. You are free to rest within its quietness. There is nowhere else you need to travel. There is nothing more you need to understand. The past is settled, the house is safe, and morning is still far away. You may close your eyes completely now, and you may sleep.